Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. This new gathering is called The Playground. I thought I would start our Wednesday night gatherings talking about the word play, and then next time we'll talk about the word ground, because those are both very important words in our tradition. What is the word for play in Sanskrit?
Līlā.
Līlā. L, long I, L, long A. Līlā, actually, Līlā. Why is that so important, and why do people name their yoga studios Līlā, and their kids and their dogs? Maybe their goldfish.
Because it's spontaneous, and true spontaneity is what we're kind of all after.
Right?
It's the nature of reality.
The nature of reality, yeah. Līlā is what reality is doing. When I say reality, I mean everything, all of existence. And because that reality is conscious and self-aware and has energy, we also could refer to all of reality as God. Everything that is produced and what is producing everything. So the nature of everything could be described by the word Līlā, play. Now, we think of playfulness as something lighthearted, and we're fine using the word play to describe a pickup basketball game or some lighthearted thing that we're doing with our friends, but really we object to using the word play very much if we have to consider that it includes war and murder and death and suffering. So there's the rub. In the standard Sanskrit English dictionary, the very first definition of Līlā is grace. So just riffing on that, if we could, through our own senses, our own body, energy, and mind, come to directly experience everything that's happening as playfulness, including everything in our own lives, that would be grace. Because if we experienced everything as playfulness, as creative, spontaneous play, that would be an end to our suffering. So in a sense, you could say, flipping the coin a bit, you could say that if enlightenment is coming to directly realize that everything is sport, everything is play, everything is like a play, a drama, then unenlightenment, aka suffering, is simply a problem of taking everything too darn seriously, losing your sense of playfulness. So the second definition is play, and the third is another word that is often used in the Tantras, the ancient scriptures, to translate Līlā, which is sport. So there's not just a playfulness in a sort of vanilla sense, but there's also a sense of sportiveness or sport. And that implies somewhat of a sense of humor or a little bit of an edge. We can see this, for instance, in the description of Krishna in the Mahabharata, where he teases people, or his mocking smile is discussed. He's very often described as mocking. So there's some sense of some kind of humorousness involved in all of this being play. that is tied up in the word sport or sportiveness. Okay, so that's sporting quality, right? Then the next meaning, there's a lot of meanings of Līlā, so hold on here. The next meaning is amusement. In the ancient texts, this reality is described as having elaborated all of these worlds and people and circumstances and situations for its own amusement, to give itself a laugh, to give itself a thrill, to enjoy, to have some kind of enjoyment. And the specific kind of enjoyment we're talking about is sensory aesthetic enjoyment. So when we wake up more, our senses wake up more, and we start to enjoy things more on that aesthetic level for their ability to provoke our senses into having certain kinds of experiences. Then another meaning is charm. That there's something alluring and charming about the activities of God. And in fact, in all of the literature from Tibet and also from India that have to do with direct realization traditions, this reality is spoken of as the glamour or the magic of God. Something absolutely alluring and magnetizing and glamorous, like the most phantasmagoric artistic construction. These are most of the meanings. Some of the other meanings are elegance, and then semblance, something that appears to be something. And that could be related to the word abhasya, which means appearing. So in the Kashmiri Tantric tradition specifically, everything here is said to be an appearing of God. An appearing has that quality of ephemerality, of something that comes and goes, that is part of impermanence. It arises and subsides. Other meanings are child's play, loveliness, a diversion. And this one I love, a maiden's playful imitation of her lover. What could you make of that? I think that's really profound in relationship to this tradition.
Making fun of, but like with kindness?
I think that could be said, but I think this more relates to the fact that Shakti, everything that we experience is said to be Shakti. And she is creating a reflection of the absolute reality. So one of the primary teachings of this tradition is that everything here is a reflection of the nature of God. So she, Shakti, is creating a playful imitation of her lover, Shiva. In the same way that the moon, Shakti, reflects the light of Shiva, the sun. There's that whole swath of teachings about this world being a reflection, in the same way that the child is a reflection of the parent. It's one of the main teachings of these kinds of traditions. And then finally, the meaning disguise. What happens is that the fullness of absolute reality takes on different disguises and creates these appearings of limitation on the absolute, on total enlightened essence nature, for the purpose of creating this play. You can't have a play without costumes. You can't have sport without uniforms. You can't have a game without different roles. So in creating all of this incredible overflow of manifestation, we all are God wearing these different costumes, and we all show up in unique ways that are limitations on the fullness of all of reality, so that we can have uniqueness, so that God can experience all of these different forms and forms of life. So this is play. And when we wake up more, we start to lose our attachment to certain conceptual ways of experiencing life. We start to lose our sense of being threatened, small, shivering, quivering, fragile individuals. And we begin to have our senses reconnect with the senses of God, and we begin to experience what is called Ananda. So Ananda is erroneously translated as bliss, because we don't really have a word for Ananda here in English. But it really means something like divine appreciation and clarity. So Ananda really is that fully embodied, joyful, aesthetic, sensory appreciation of one's own nature, the nature of everything. That is the state in which everything can be enjoyed fully. We can experience that Līlā in full measure. We spend an incredible amount of time playing. We play with each other, we play games, we talk a lot, we share GIFs on Facebook. We're adults, but we spend an incredible amount of time playing. That is a reflection of the nature of reality. So this is a quote from Ma. In the world, everybody's mad about something or other. Some more, some to a lesser extent. See, God's Līlā is so enjoyable. He has created a madhouse. Try to find yourself through yourself. So Ma's saying that we all have this madness. We all have this fervor. But because we're limited, we're experiencing it as compulsion. Try to find in the midst of your compulsion the real divine madness. The madness for all of creation, the enjoyment of all of creation. In your limited compulsive madness, there is a reflection of that divine madness. She's saying, so try to find yourself through yourself. It is a madhouse. It's just a lot bigger madhouse than you think it is. This is from Swami Lakshmanju's very recently published, I wouldn't exactly say it's a translation, it's more like a conversation about the Tantra Loka. This is Swami Lakshmanju talking about one of Abhinavagupta's shlokas in this book. He, meaning Abhinavagupta, explains that the verbal root of the word deva is what? God. The verbal root of the word deva is divu. Divu is really the verbal root from which deva has been formed. And that verbal root divu means play. Now this is Swami Lakshmanju talking. It is not play when you go for business. When you go and collect money, when you earn money, it is not play. Because it is for the reason to have something and to disown something. You want to have what you want to disown what you don't like. This is rejecting and accepting. When this behavior is over, then you can just play. So what he's trying to express with his limited English is that things are not play when you have attachments, when you only want things to be a certain way and you don't want them to be another way, and you think some ways are bad and some ways are good. And so when you are in this condition, you can't play, because then this is where your seriousness, your earnestness enters in, and this is the definition of suffering. That you don't see the divine play happening in every circumstance. You don't see the wisdom in every circumstance. You don't see the lightness in every circumstance. You are still having an experience of being one individual, being tormented by the world or rewarded, either one, but you're kind of bouncing back and forth. So when this behavior is over, you can just play, just like a little boy who just likes to jump and play in the universe because of his own freedom, because of his own happiness, because of his own joy. And then he goes on to talk about one of the implications of the fact that everything that is a form of play, appearances that are a form of play of the divine. So one of the implications of this, first of all, is you lose your earnestness, of course. But the other implication is about this notion of impurity or sin. And this is also one of the main distinctions between the direct realization traditions and a lot of other spiritual religious traditions. There is no concept of sin or impurity in this tradition. And this is why. The existence of impurity, or we could say a limitation or something wrong, is just the choice of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva is another name for all of reality. It is not something. So he keeps saying this throughout this second section. And impurity is not a thing. It is just your desire. It is just the independent glory of the Lord. So desire is what is propelling all of this, just the desire to express oneself, for the desire of this reality to express itself. So what we call an impurity, what we call a limitation, what we call a crime, what we call all of these bad things, these things are just the Lord expressing itself, himself, itself, and part of the glory of the freedom of the Lord. That's from God's perspective. From our perspective, this play, it is just ignorance. It doesn't allow knowledge to function. Knowledge is stopped. So mala, the word for impurity, like a navamala, the sense of separation, is the absence of knowledge. It's not something substantial like a flaw or a dirt or a sin, right? It's just the absence of something. It isn't anything added in. It's the absence of self-knowledge. So there is no impurity in the real sense. Impurity does not exist. When we understand that all formations, all circumstances, all limitations are the play or the sport of God, then we realize that there is no substantial impurity. There's no substantial fault. There's nothing actually wrong. There's just the lack of full self-knowledge that is operating to create different, wonderful, elaborate, crazy, mad circumstances, just like a blockbuster movie or a play that you would go to see, where all kinds of things are happening. You know, worlds are blowing up and we're going, yay! It's fun. We get to experience all kinds of emotions. We get to taste a huge palette of emotions. We get to experience a huge palette of sensory experiences. And this is all not academic. So for those of you that are new to this community and maybe to this tradition also, there is no sense ever in which I or any other teacher who really understands this tradition would ever be asking you to believe anything that the teacher says. Anybody teaching in this tradition would consider your belief to be a huge mistake and to be utterly rejected, because this is a very practical tradition. If you stick around and you practice, you will be given tools to find out for yourself if what I'm saying is true. What we're interested in is you finding out for yourself. So if I say anything that seems utterly outrageous to you and that you want to reject, what I would ask you to do, if you're at all interested, is don't reject or accept anything. This is a program of finding out. This is a tradition of finding out, of actually doing something and finding out for yourself. And the assumption is that with your five senses and with your mind, you can find out. Because what you are investigating is your own nature. So what happens is people come, and then sometimes they're here for all different reasons, but the people that stay and practice, they, even in the beginning, and even if I say something outrageous, like this is all play and sport, they feel something. That's the most important thing. What do you feel? Because if you are actually hearing the truth of your own nature, something in you will answer that, in spite of your intellectual or moral or ethical objections, your conceptual objections. This is a practice of experience, not of beliefs or philosophies. We have what's called view, this is a view teaching, what I'm just giving now. But the view is embodied. The view is something you can experience even when just hearing an oral teaching. So use your mind, ask questions, investigate, but don't decide on the basis of intellectual concepts. Decide on the basis of practice. Because if what I'm saying is true, you can do the practice and find out for yourself using only your own body, energy, and mind. And then you can have confidence and not belief. I grew up, I never believed anything. Nor did I disbelieve anything. For some reason, I was blessed to be comfortable not knowing, which is a wonderful place to be, to just say, I don't know. And then to have curiosity to find out on top of that, right? I don't know, but I want to find out. So I never disbelieved anything or believed anything. I always thought, what is the point of that? And then luckily this tradition came along, and I could have a tradition that agreed with me. What is the point of believing when you can find out for yourself? When I say that the things we think of as bad are also the play of God, I don't mean that we're just going, ha ha ha, all the time at people's troubles. Because compassion and mercy and sadness and grief and anger and all of these different things that we experience are also built into reality. So you don't lose your emotional palette when you become more realized. In fact, it gets more refined. It doesn't go away. You still want to help people who are in trouble. You don't just go, ha ha ha, lying on the side of the road dying, ha ha ha, play of God. Walk away. You're in the game, right? Mm-hmm. And the game includes compassion and love, right? And I would say that two things. One is to just look for the wisdom in situations. Ask yourself not as something good or bad or terrible or wonderful, but what is the wisdom here? Like the situation with Trump. Mm-hmm. What is the wisdom there? Look at how much more awake people in this country are right now. We were like somnambulists before Trump got into office, many of us. I mean, of course, there's many people who have been activists, and have been activists for decades and decades, ever since the country was born, but there are also a huge number of people who really were fast asleep. And I think there's fewer fast asleep people now. And now we have all these younger, more progressive people running for office, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different offices all over the country. And we're going to have a sea change, regardless of how horrible it is with Trump in power right now. We are going to have a major sea change. So that's just a crude example of, okay, ask yourself, what is the wisdom here? And how can I go along with that?
Why do we try to participate in goodness or ahimsa or, compassion, devotion? We try to participate in those things and try not to participate in cruelty. Mm-hmm. Why one and not the other? Why don't we just be cruel?
Because there's another aspect of the game. The other aspect of the game is recognition. So there's this self-imposed limitation. And the more limited, cruelty is a product of greater limitation than kindness. Mm-hmm. And, if you want to look at sort of like the continuum of limitation, there's like total enlightenment, and then there's stuff, jada, okay? Total non-sentient. This is God playing the role of this, of being non-sentient, right over here. And, over here is total awakeness.
So cruelty is less limited than that.
Yeah. Okay. Cruelty, you have to be sentient to be cruel, mm-hmm. right? So cruelty is somewhere here. And then there's like more kindness as you go here. So the process of starting out somewhere in the murky middle, is a mixed bag of cruelty and kindness. The game that is being played is of waking up and recognizing oneself in all your fullness. So this game is built into you. You're a player in the game, right? Your purpose is built in, and it's built in as longing to be good, to discover goodness. So once you have discovered that longing to connect with your basic sweetness and goodness and to be aligned with goodness, and sweetness and kindness. Once you've discovered a desire to do that, even if you haven't fully embodied it yet, you're already like way along in the game. Right? Mm-hmm. But you don't want to lose your place in the game by being a jerk. Because we can, get recycled back to
Banana slug.
Banana slug, yeah. I'm just kidding. But I don't really know that. I'm just joking. Plus, trying to scare you a little bit. It's so easy. My job is simple. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.